Hey guys, DC Network here, coming at you with another video. As we all know, Craig McCracken, the original creator of Foster Home for Imaginary Friends and the Powerpuff Girls on Cartoon Network, is currently back at the network, working on not only a new Powerpuff Girls series, but also a Foster Home for Imaginary Friends spin-off show. And as we know, this spin-off series is not actually something that's going to be meant for Cartoon Network, but something that's meant for preschool audiences on Cartoonito. This is going to be the first ever preschool show in the Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends world. And as cool as it is to see us returning to the Foster's world, I've been on the record before saying that I'm not exactly the most excited or necessarily happy to see that the first iteration in this Foster's world after the original series is going to be in the preschool landscape, because that's just not something that's for me. I think it will do well, I think it will fit in well to that world, but it's not exactly what I want to be seeing. So today I wanted to discuss with you guys what I think would be the perfect way to bring back Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends on Cartoon Network. So as we all know, the original series, which premiered in the mid-2000s, took place where Mac had to give up his imaginary friend to go into this basically a adoption center for imaginary friends, a home for them to live at, a foster home, hence the name Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. I think that the perfect way to bring back this series would be to age up the characters just like the audience who watched the original series has aged up. So imagine this. Imagine the Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends world, the way we left it back in the mid to late 2000s. That world has evolved over the past 20-something years or 15 years or however long it's been since the finale aired, and we see that Madam Foster is maybe now retired. Maybe Mr. Harriman has even stepped down as running the Home for Imaginary Friends, and now Frankie is in charge of running it. Maybe Wilt, Eduardo, and Coco are helping her out in running this home. We see that Mac is now aged up. Maybe he's in his 30s, or maybe he even is in his 40s, and he has his own kids now, and his own kids are in the same scenario in which he was in the premiere of the original series, where they're at the point in their life where they're too old for their imaginary friends, and Mac is like, hey look, you guys can't be walking around school and stuff with these imaginary friends anymore. You have to give them up, and he takes them to Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends just like his mother did back in the original series. I feel like a cool movie event would be the perfect way to kick off this series, just like the original series kicked off with the movie. But nevertheless, I feel like it'd be really cool to see the parallels of Mac is now at this point in his life where he's telling his kids, hey, you gotta grow up, you gotta give up these imaginary friends, and then maybe his kids go to Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends every day to visit their friends and all the friends at the home, just like he did when he was a kid. You could even see Mac visit the home as well, because I'm sure he'd still have a relationship with the characters at the home as well. I'm sure he'd still be visiting Blue, Eduardo, Coco, Wilt, and Frankie as well. I think this would just be a really cool series and a cool way to evolve the Foster's world, just like people like me who grew up with the original series has evolved in the real world as well. Maybe you have your own kids at this point if you grew up with the original show, and then they could relate to this, and you could even have this be a family event. Have it be something that not only you watch, but you watch with your kids. Another take on this series as well could even be something to the extent of maybe Mac now works at the home. Maybe he works as the modern day Frankie, and Frankie's in charge of the home, and he's kind of, the one making sure everything's running on the day-to-day. Well, if there's a problem, he's the one to fix it, and maybe Blue is his right-hand man, and as we all know, Blue isn't exactly the most adept person at fixing things, so maybe he ends up making things worse, and then Mac and Blue get into all this trouble at the home because instead of fixing things and making them better, they're actually inadvertently making them worse. That could also be another cool take on the Foster's Home world in the modern day. And the last take I have, which is a bit of a different one at that, is what if the world of Foster's has evolved over the past 15 years, where now it's kind of welcomed and acceptable to have an imaginary friend as an older kid or even as an adult? What if we see imaginary friends kind of become like business partners with their adult counterparts? Like, for example, imagine that you're a construction worker and you have this imaginary friend who also is a construction worker, and he or she helps you on whatever job you're doing. What if you're a news anchor and your imaginary friend friend ends up helping you do the weather report or something like that. And we see that imaginary friends are kind of just now in day-to-day life with humans, as opposed to how they were in the original series, where it's like, okay, once you get to the age of 10 or 11 or 12 or whatever age Mac was, you have to give up your imaginary friend and have them go into a foster home for adoption. I think that would be a really interesting take on the world of fosters, to see that it's accepted now to have an imaginary friend as an adult and it's not something that you have to give up as a kid. My only caveat with that idea is then how would the foster's home exactly fit into this idea? Where would it be? Would it have been shut down because there's no need for it anymore? Maybe it's a place for imaginary friends who were not in the greatest of situations. They come in to get adopted by a new family. That's the only thing I don't exactly have ironed out in my head. But either way, I feel like this would be the perfect way to re-enter this world, to have the characters be aged up. So not only can the original fans of the original series relate to them, because now the characters are older and they're going through some of the same things that you're going through in your life, but a younger generation of kids can go into this world and get accustomed to these new characters as well as some old characters too. Out of the three ideas, personally, my favorite one is the first one that I told you guys, where Mac has his own kids and they're going through the same parallels that Mac went through when he was a kid at their age, and they have to give up their imaginary friends. That's my favorite version of this sequel show, or whatever you want to call it, just because I feel like there's a lot of parallels to the original, and not only would you as an old fan be able to relate to it, but it also would have that child entry point for new fans, the current generation of kids, to get into this series. But let me know in the comment section below what you guys think about all of this. Which one of my ideas is your favorite, and which one would you like to see in the future on Cartoon Network? If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to see more content like this from DC Network. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.